Discover how one amazing cup of coffee became a transformative connection for two surprising souls. On a drizzly Thursday morning, Lucy wiped her brow with the back of her hand, flicking away the moisture accumulating in the steam-filled air of the coffee shop. She had already been on her feet for hours, serving steaming lattes and rich espressos to the familiar faces of the town. The warmth of her grandmother's legacy enveloped her like a safety blanket, an aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods, the flickering glow of vintage lights, creating a warmth she clung to with both pride and desperation. Yet each passing day, she felt the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily against her chest. A single mother of two, her heart raced with every transaction, wondering if the day's sales would be enough to cover groceries or the electric bill. Each cup served came with its own hefty price, and her determination often masked an aching fear that she wasn't doing enough. Then the door chimed as a newcomer stepped inside, shaking off the rain like a dog returning from a muddy walk. Ethan, a strikingly tall man with tousled dark hair, ordered a dark roast, as if it were an old friend. Lucy felt her stomach knot. His polished shoes and crisp button-down clashed with the homegrown, cozy vibe of the shop. Was he here to judge, to ridicule? But when she presented him with a bespoke blend she developed, mellow with just a hint of chocolate and nutty undertones, he caught her off guard. Curiosity mingled with anxiety as she observed the delighted expression on his face. But as their eyes met, she felt a surge of unease. Who was she to engage in idle chit-chat with someone from a world so far removed from hers? Before they could delve deeper, she felt the pressure of the line building behind him, muffled voices edged with impatience. Should she maintain the polished facade of a perfect barista, or should she open up about her struggles? The dual existence of hope and fear clashed violently within her. She faced a dilemma. Would revealing the truth of her life bring understanding or condemnation? The very thought of letting someone like Ethan in, a man seemingly fashioned from a different galaxy, sent tremors down her spine. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet as he leaned against the counter, listening intently, their conversation took on a current of intimacy that both terrified and exhilarated her. With each shared story, her walls began to falter, his revealing the anxiety of family expectations that choked the life from him like a noose. Here she was, battling to keep her children fed, while he lamented over inherited obligations he despised. It was uncanny, the way they reflected each other's burdens, yet the shadow of her reality loomed heavier. The fear of trust and vulnerability throbbed like a wound, scabbing over yet never quite healing. As they exchanged glances, Lucy's pulse quickened. How could she let this man into her meticulously crafted world? The ghost of her grandmother's expectations hung heavily in the air. Loyalty to her family's legacy felt like an anchor, but was it a choice made from strength or fear? Torn between ambition for something new and the safety of familiarity, Lucy clung to the hope that maybe Ethan, and the heart of his secret, might illuminate paths she had yet to explore. Tension tightened around her heart as she recognized the fragility of what they were creating. It danced on the edge of becoming something profound, a bond wrapped in uncertainty. With Ethan lingering at the counter, an unflinching gaze aimed at her heart, the storm outside seemed to reflect her internal tempest. What would happen if tracks diverged, or if the truth about his inheritance shattered whatever flicker of connection they had ignited? Lucy's breath hitched as the answers evaded her. A quiet urgency emerged, each moment a wavering step closer to an unseen precipice. Would she cling to her guarded heart or leap into uncharted territory, shadows of the past eclipsing the bright promise of a shared future? The rain continued to tap rhythmically against the window, mirroring the tumult of Lucy's thoughts as she stood there straining against the pull of hesitation. Ethan's presence felt like a needle threading through the complexities of her heart, creating a tapestry of unexpected possibilities. Each moment stretched unbearably, and she was keenly aware of the muted conversation that surrounded them. It was a barrier she must break through. "Tell me about your coffee," Ethan said, a sincere gleam in his eyes. It was a gentle prompt, a lifeline he cast to her that she both craved and feared. She inhaled the comforting scent of roasted beans that had filled the shop for years, her grandmother's legacy resting heavily on her shoulders. What narrative could she weave that would honor that legacy while bringing her own truth to light? "It's more than just coffee," she began, her voice carrying an unexpected weight. "Each blend tells a story, and this particular one—" She hesitated, glancing around as if seeking validation from the fading memories captured in the flickering lights. "Was inspired by my grandmother's love for adventure. She always believed life should be savored, each moment as rich as a well-brewed cup." Ethan leaned closer, his expression encouraging, his curiosity igniting her own. Still, the trembling tiptoe of vulnerability made her anxious. This was the dilemma. Offering a piece of herself meant exposing the jagged edges of her life, but the deeper connection they were building yearned for truth. "Do you always feel like you're living through her?" he asked gently, as if he too had danced with the ghosts of family expectations. Sometimes it just feels like I'm bound by her dreams," Lucy admitted, the admission tasting bitter yet freeing. The apprehension wavered as she confronted the undeniable truth. She had always measured herself against the weight of her grandmother's triumphs and failures. Was it an anchor or a challenge? "I know that feeling. It's like wearing someone else's skin," he responded, and she noticed how the shadows in his eyes mirrored her own. Lucy's heart raced, the whispers of self-doubt growing louder within her. Was she courageous enough to break free? What if embracing her passion for coffee meant stepping away from the safety of the familiar? She had built her life around the hopeful facade of her grandmother's legacy. But was it truly hers, or merely tracing the paths laid before her? She caught herself picturing the cafe from a different lens, a vibrant space where she didn't just serve coffee, but cultivated experiences. The idea flashed like lightning through her mind. If she could channel her passion into something beyond a daily grind, a platform for her creativity, could that be a step toward reclaiming her narrative? And why not invite Ethan into that vision? The thought fluttered hesitantly, akin to a bird on the cusp of flight. Could he become part of this transformation? What if, instead of the burdens of their pasts looming over them, there was a shared venture that illuminated their potential? As if sensing her internal shift, Ethan's gaze softened. What if we talked about what comes after this coffee? What if we dared to dream? In that moment, Lucy sensed the change coursing through her. She stood at a crossroads, swaying between fear and the burgeoning excitement of choice. Would they forge a connection wrapped in honesty, or would it fray under the weight of the unknown? As her heart whispered of potential, a new thought formed. Perhaps what she truly feared wasn't the leap, but the possibility of falling into something profound. "Let's," she breathed, the words slipping through her lips like the steam rising from the coffee machine. "Let's talk about what comes next." In that single exchange, the air thickened with possibilities, leaving Lucy teetering on the brink, where hope flickered against the currents of uncertainty. And as they stood there, entwined by the shared burden of expectation, she realized their stories could collide in ways neither had anticipated. But unforeseen challenges loomed on the horizon. How would Ethan's family, with their legacy and privilege, react to this new direction? Would he support her as they navigated the precarious world of ambition and authenticity together? Lucy felt the tension mount. Their connection was budding, yet the shadows of their respective pasts threatened to dim the light of their newfound dreams. And as she prepared to step into this promising yet daunting future, uncertainty gripped her heart, revealing her own underlying fears while igniting a flicker of courage. Would this leap strengthen them or pull them apart? The moment of truth was approaching, one that could redefine everything they had begun to craft together. Lucy clasped her cup as if it were a talisman, grounding her amidst swirling thoughts of possibility. The weight of her decision loomed larger than the espresso machine's gentle hiss, evoking a mix of excitement and trepidation. She caught Ethan's gaze, steady and reassuring, a reminder that they were in this together. "Let's make a plan," she said, the resolve in her voice surprising even herself. "What if we turned this place into a hub for creativity and community? I want to create workshops around brewing methods, tastings, and storytelling sessions. We could showcase local artists and musicians. It could become something special." Ethan's eyebrows shot up, caught off guard momentarily, before a grin broke across his face. "Now that's an exciting idea. I can already envision the energy it would bring. But are you ready? People won't just come for the coffee. They'll want to connect with you." His words nudged at the bugs of doubt that still crawled in her mind. Would they truly come for her, for the authenticity she had yet to fully embrace? "I want to be more than just my grandmother's legacy," but the fear whispers loud. His expression shifted to one of understanding as he nodded slowly. "We can't let their expectations tether us. Maybe it's time we start defining our own narratives." The idea of moving past her grandmother's shadow felt intoxicating and terrifying. Yet Ethan's encouragement was a soft flame, igniting her courage. She didn't have to turn her back on history. She could honor it while building her own foundation. "Okay, let's take steps together," Lucy said, feeling the warmth in her chest expand. The prospect of collaboration fed a spark of optimism. "Why don't we hold a brainstorming session, get feedback from friends and frequent customers about what they'd want to see?" "Absolutely," Ethan replied, his enthusiasm infectious. "But I think we should also put our own touch on the ambiance, perhaps a new name, something that captures the spirit of what we're trying to create." Lucy's mind raced with ideas that danced like sunlight on the surface of water. "What if we incorporated names that echo stories?" she mused. "Titles of books, colors, or even feelings that represent the essence of each blend." It felt liberating to brainstorm possibilities, the act of shaping the cafe reflecting a deeper transformation within herself. They spent the better part of the afternoon bouncing ideas off each other, savoring the thrill of creation. Each moment felt healing, the communion echoing with the laughter and musings of much-loved memories. As twilight approached, Lucy's sense of validation burgeoned, along with a flicker of doubt. She kept circling back to the looming question, what would Ethan's family say? Their world felt light years away from hers, a tapestry woven with privilege and expectations. "Ethan," she hesitated, the thought choking her words, "will your family accept what we're building? It's far from coffee as they see it." He paused, brow slightly furrowed, as if finally considering the reality that stretched before them. "I can tell you my family isn't averse to change, but they may not immediately understand your vision. But that's why it's even more crucial that you own this." It was a paradox she couldn't ignore, embracing her true self and causing ripples in his life. There was a fear of judgment mingling with the hope of authenticity, but every fiber of her being insisted change demanded courage. "Maybe this is part of the journey," Lucy replied, steeling herself against another wave of anxiety. If we embrace what makes us fierce and passionate, we can pull through anything, even the expectations of families that don't always understand. The thought left her buoyed, as if she had just discovered an anchor she could cling to. What if, instead of being trapped in their expectations, they could create something that bridged their worlds? As the rain transformed into a light drizzle outside, she looked into Ethan's eyes, searching for assurance. They exchanged a knowing glance, two souls standing on the precipice of something beautifully profound. But the undercurrents of doubt still churned within her. Stepping into her true self might mean unearthing layers of resentment, not only from his family, but her own. "Are we prepared for the storm ahead?" she finally asked, feeling vulnerability creep in again. "I think we might just find beauty in it," he replied softly, a phantom smile on his lips. With that simple notion of faith, the tension broke just a little, yet her heart pounded with the gravity of their unspoken risks. Lucy took a breath, ready to navigate the labyrinth ahead. Today had transformed them in ways she hadn't anticipated, yet it was only the beginning. Could they embrace their fears while sending ripples through expectations? As they sat side by side, the future beckoned, promising challenges yet to unfold. And beneath the surface of their budding partnership lay a reminder, flickering like the candlelight illuminating their table. The real test of their bond lay not just in creation, but in the navigation of familial realms stirring with both pride and unwillingness to change. Would they strengthen their bond against those currents, or would their individual identities falter in the clash? "Are we prepared for the storm ahead?" she finally asked, feeling vulnerability creep in again. "I think we might just find beauty in it," he replied softly, a phantom smile on his lips. With that simple notion of faith, the tension broke just a little, yet her heart pounded with the gravity of their unspoken risks. Lucy took a breath, ready to navigate the labyrinth ahead. Today had transformed them in ways she hadn't anticipated, yet it was only the beginning. Could they embrace their fears while sending ripples through expectations? As they sat side by side, the future beckoned, promising challenges yet to unfold. And beneath the surface of their budding partnership lay a reminder, flickering like the candlelight illuminating their table. The real test of their bond lay not just in creation, but in the navigation of familial realms stirring with both pride and unwillingness to change. Would they strengthen their bond against those currents, or would their individual identities falter in the clash? The next morning dawned with a thick haze hanging over the city, a gray canvas that mirrored Lucy's uncertain mood. She awoke early, her mind a restless whirlpool of ideas and fears. Each sip of coffee felt laden with potential, while simultaneously shadowed by doubt. Ethan had suggested they begin the brainstorming session today, inviting a select group of trusted friends and regulars to share their thoughts on the cafe's future. It was a practical step, yes, but the very thought of laying bare her vision sent shivers through her spine. What if they scoffed? What if they preferred the familiar comforts over her ambitious dreams? Lucy pushed herself out of bed, shaking off the impending sense of dread. As she made her way through the quiet cafe, her fingers grazed the polished wood of the counter, a grounding reminder of the legacy she both cherished and yearned to redefine. Preparation for the meeting consumed her morning. She meticulously arranged the seating, creating a circle that invited conversation. She collected an assortment of her grandmother's famous blends, determined to showcase the cafe's history while espousing her vision for the future. Lucy knew she was walking a tightrope, balancing between tradition and her aspirations, but she felt a flicker of courage ignite within her. The participants filtered in one by one, bringing warmth with their laughter and familiar faces. Each one held a thread of her story. They were her community, forged through countless morning greetings and shared moments over coffee. The sense of camaraderie was palpable, yet beneath that, an undercurrent of anticipation crackled like static. Once everyone was settled, Lucy cleared her throat, conscious of the intensity of every eye on her. The coffee aroma wafted through the air, a gentle reminder of comfort. "Thank you all for coming," she began, fighting the tremor in her voice. "I've been thinking about how we can transform this cafe into a space that's not just about coffee, but about creativity and connection." The nods of encouragement were strong. It filled her with a surge of determination. As she shared her vision of workshops, storytelling sessions, and an emphasis on local artistry, she watched as her friends absorbed her words, their expressions shifting from curiosity to enthusiasm. But as she relayed her ideas, a nagging thought nagged at her. Was she equipped to lead this change? Could she withstand the pressure and deliver something worthy? The familiar doubt crept in, whispering unsettling reminders of inadequacy. "Lucy," one friend interjected, "this is a beautiful idea, but why do you feel it's important to step away from what your grandmother built? What if we leveraged her legacy instead?" The question struck a chord. It was a fair observation, but it also felt like a rejection of her desires. Lucy's heart raced as her anxiety surged. "Because I don't want to just be a caretaker of her legacy. I want to create my own, to breathe new life into this space." The silence that followed was heavy, the judgment around the table cloaked in an unspoken understanding. It was Ethan's voice that cut through the tension. "Lucy, we need your authenticity. We want to see how your passion translates into something more than just coffee. That's what draws people to you." Recognition ignited her spirit. She realized that this was not about erasing her grandmother's influence. It was about weaving her own thread into the fabric of this family-owned history. The warmth of support radiated from her friends, bolstering her resolve. With each suggestion that followed, each affirmation and hopeful idea, Lucy found herself peeling back layers of self-doubt. New ideas emerged: art installations from local artists, open mic nights for aspiring poets, and thematic blending nights to experience flavors from various cultures through storytelling. "Let's create a space where people can explore and express themselves, just like my grandmother encouraged me," she proposed, an excitement bubbling within her that she didn't recognize. It felt real. It felt right. As the meeting progressed, she could feel a shift within herself. Each positive reaction chipped away at her lingering insecurities, infusing her with a sense of capability. The process of envisioning this cafe as a living connection between past and future began to fill her with a burgeoning sense of purpose, a realization that transcendence began with acceptance. They wrapped up the session amid enthusiastic chatter, and Lucy couldn't shake the feeling of newfound strength coursing through her veins. For the first time in ages, she viewed her identity as twofold: rooted in her past, yet empowered to carve her path. However, as she glanced at Ethan across the room, she caught a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. What storm brewed behind his warm smile? Did he share the same optimism she felt, or were there remnants of doubt still lurking in his heart? The question lingered between them, buoying and burdening, casting a shadow over her moment of triumph. What did the future hold for their relationship amidst the swirling expectations and newfound aspirations? Lucy couldn't shake the notion that the true test was yet to come, navigating the tensions between their dreams and the weight of familial history. Could they truly merge their identities without losing themselves? That thought stayed suspended in the air, echoing in her mind as she stepped into the uncertainty awaiting them just beyond the cafe door. As the last of her friends trickled out, Lucy sat alone in the cafe, the remnants of laughter and ideas hanging in the air like an electrified mist. The chairs she'd arranged with care felt heavy now, imbued with the weight of her aspirations and the unvoiced concerns that still lingered. Her heart raced as she reflected on the passionate energy that had filled the room, but just beneath it, the hesitation of her resolve gnawed at her. Ethan stepped into the frame of the doorway, leaning casually against the wooden threshold. His expression was calm, but the quiet intensity of his gaze made her stomach flutter. "You did great today," he said, offering an encouraging smile. The very kindness in his voice only intensified the uncertainty brewing within her. What did he really think about the changes she envisioned? Was he truly supportive, or simply being polite? "Thanks," she replied, looking down at her hands, which rested on the counter. The familiar feel of the wood calmed her, grounding her swirling thoughts. "Do you think they'll really embrace it? The changes, I mean." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, as if weighing his response carefully. "You have a unique opportunity here, Lucy. It's not just about the cafe. It's about what you bring to it, your vision, your energy. They'll see that." His words still felt distant from her inner tumult. She wasn't sure she believed them. Why was it so easy to doubt herself, even when others built her up? She could feign confidence, but the deep-rooted insecurities whispered treacherously in the back of her mind. "Are you sure you're on board with this?" she asked, her voice wavering. "What do you see for us moving forward?" He paused, studying her with a mix of concern and admiration. "I am on board, Lucy, but you need to realize something about yourself. This cafe isn't just a legacy, it's a collaboration of your passions. You're not just stepping into your grandmother's shoes. You're creating a new space that blends her wisdom with your dreams. But you need to trust in that evolution." Lucy felt a rush of emotion cloud her vision. Could she really step up in this way? The words stirred her determination, yet the flicker of doubt stayed constant. What did she truly want, and how far was she willing to go to achieve it? That night, Lucy cast aside sleep, reaching for her laptop and a clean sheet of paper. With determination mounting behind each keystroke, she began to map out her ideas. Her vision transformed from whimsical thoughts into structured plans. Implementing open mic nights came to life alongside collaborative art projects that would invite a fusion of creativity with her family's history. As the night deepened, she remained lost in her thoughts, her mind racing with possibilities. But shadows persisted, creeping into her newfound enthusiasm. Was she merely a dreamer? With dawn threatening to break, she found herself drafting a message to her friends, sharing her evolving plans, and inviting them to contribute. Would their support continue? Did they truly see her as the leader she was attempting to become? The act felt like a leap into unknown waters, intimidating but necessary. The morning light seeped through the cafe windows as she hit send. Vibrations of anticipation coiled within her, filled with a tangible tension that danced on the boundaries of hope and fear. As seconds ticked into minutes, her pulse quickened. How would they respond? Each comment, each reply could either ground her soaring aspirations or shatter them. Yet she could sense a shift, ignited by the potential of this new journey. She was beginning to forge her path, no longer tethered solely by the echoes of her grandmother's legacy. But with each step forward, she also felt the weight of every expectation pressing upon her shoulders. That burden crystallized into a stark realization. Beyond her physical cafe, she was also shaping a new relationship with Ethan. They were entwined in this transformation, but the stakes of their futures mingled dangerously amidst their creative pursuits. What if he didn't agree with everything? What if his vision diverged from hers? Navigating their relationship and their professional lives felt like walking a tightrope with much at stake. Yet, before she could ponder further, Lucy noticed the faint lighting of her phone screen. A reply had just come through. Her heart raced as she opened it, the words brimming with either encouragement or potential backlash. What awaited her on the other side of this communication? The answer could change everything. The notification glowed brightly on her screen, capturing her attention completely. Lucy could hardly breathe as she opened the message from Sam, one of her closest friends and a fervent supporter of her ideas. His words flooded her, "Lucy, I love the direction you're taking. Let's brainstorm tomorrow. I have some cool ideas too." Relief washed over her like the soothing balm, the tightness in her chest loosening just a bit. As the day wore on, she felt a surge of energy igniting within. The previous night's doubts began to dissolve. Sam's enthusiasm was infectious, and she desperately needed it as a reminder that she wasn't alone in this journey. With that thought, Lucy dove headfirst into her tasks for the day, making her way through the cafe's morning hustle. Customers trickled in as she prepared cups of coffee, engaging in light banter with regulars who started to notice the renewed spark in her demeanor. Was that the magic of possibility she was feeling? She was not only breathing life into the cafe, but into herself as well. However, her internal dialogue mirrored the hustle outside. While her body worked, her mind wrestled with the question of how to maintain this momentum. After the initial rush subsided, she took a moment to scour the vast array of ideas she drafted the previous night. The sense of ownership began to take form. This was her canvas now. Yet, with this ownership came an undeniable fear. What if her vision fell flat? The weight of expectation once again rested on her shoulders like an unfamiliar shroud. Determined to strategize, she pulled out her notebook and began to make a priority list. Integrating her grandmother's legacy with her youthful ambitions required balance, and she needed to carve a unique narrative that honored both. As she wrote, small affirmations began to surface. You have the right vision. This is your moment, and you can lead. Each affirmation felt like a step closer to the confident leader she envisioned herself becoming. Hours later, when the cafe quieted down, she found herself pacing back and forth, lost in thought. Ethan hadn't offered his insights since that fateful evening. They needed to discuss their perspectives on the cafe's direction. She could sense a growing tension between them, an invisible barrier that needed to be addressed lest it fracture their companionship. What if he questioned her vision? Or worse, what if he resented her ambition? As night fell, she inhaled deeply and sent Ethan a text, requesting a meeting. It felt both brave and terrifying. Would he see her for the leader she was striving to be, or would he see this as a transformation he never signed up for? She couldn't shake the thought that their evolving relationship could be at stake. While waiting for his response, doubts resurfaced, mingling with her thoughts about how this conversation could unfold. She longed for confirmation from him, a sign that they were still on the same team, creating a shared future. But if she truly wanted to lead, it was time she confronted the truths that lay ahead, especially her own. Moments later, her phone vibrated again. Ethan's response had arrived. "How about tomorrow afternoon? I'd love to talk." The nonchalant tone struck her as both comforting and ambiguous. Lucy swallowed her apprehension, but her determination strengthened. Before she would meet him, she needed to sharpen her resolve, to nurture the leader waiting in the wings. How would she express to Ethan her newfound ambition without scaring him away? Tomorrow would bring not only a conversation about the cafe, but an unveiling of her deeper desires and a test of their bond. She had to be ready for whatever those revelations might bring, ready to confront not just the cafe's future, but her own budding authority. As she prepared for a restless night, uncertainty hung over her like a dark cloud, yet a flicker of hope surged beneath it. She wasn't just a caretaker anymore. She was forging her own identity. Was she truly ready to claim it, flaws and all? The time had come to unravel her vision to Ethan and face the reality of their intertwined futures. Little did she know, their conversation could unlock unforeseen possibilities, reshape their relationship, and redefine her journey. What awaited her in their discussion could either solidify her path or unravel the fabric of their partnership. The stakes had never felt so high. The morning light streamed into the cafe as Lucy prepared for what felt like the most consequential meeting of her professional life. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with her swirling anxieties, a potent reminder of the stakes. Today, everything could shift. Her relationship with Ethan, her vision for the cafe, her identity as a leader, it all teetered on the brink of transformation. She fussed over the counter, adjusting the displays as if the proper arrangement could somehow camouflage her nerves. Customers came and went, but Lucy's focus remained narrow, her thoughts consumed with how to convey her ideas without alienating him. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed harsh, exposing her self-doubt. She caught glimpses of her reflection in the polished surface of the espresso machine. The aspiring leader looked almost foreign to her. When Ethan finally arrived, he was a mixture of familiar comfort and unsettling unpredictability. His casual demeanor masked the tension lingering beneath the surface. As he stepped toward her, recognizing him as both a partner in the cafe and a childhood friend stirred mixed emotions. She wondered if he sensed the weight of the conversation hovering in the air. "Hey, Lucy," he greeted with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. She noticed a flicker of hesitation there, a silent acknowledgement of the shifting dynamics they faced. "Hi, Ethan," she replied, struggling to match his lightness. They settled at a table in the far corner, away from the bustle, but even the solitude didn't dull her racing heart. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his tone casual yet encouraging. The heaviness in the room felt too grand for small talk. She took a deep breath, rehearsing her thoughts in her head. "I think it's time we discuss some ideas about the cafe, especially our future direction." The words escaped her lips before she could reconsider. Anxiety made her wonder if she sounded too abrupt. Yet she pressed on. "I have a vision for what we could become, something that honors my grandmother's legacy while embracing new possibilities." Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" His expression blended curiosity with caution, and she saw that familiar flicker of protectiveness that showed he cared for her ideas but feared where they might lead them both. She dove in deeper, laying out her thoughts with conviction. "I envision incorporating more community-based events, highlighting local artists and entrepreneurs. We can create a space that's more than just a cafe. It can be a hub for creativity and connection." As she spoke, Lucy noticed a subtle shift in Ethan's demeanor. His arms, once crossed defensively, began to relax. But uncertainties still clouded his features as he took in her words. "That's a significant change. What if it doesn't resonate with our current customers? What if we alienate them?" His concerns mirrored her own fears, yet they ignited something inside her. The slight tremor in her voice gave way to strength, bolstered by her vision's clarity. "What if it does resonate?" she countered, her heart racing. "What if we build a community that thrives on shared experiences? This could be our opportunity to redefine not just the cafe, but our lives, too." Lucy watched as Ethan considered her words, the internal conflict evident in the tension of his shoulders. She felt the weight of her dreams pressing against the fragile foundation of their friendship, both exhilarating and terrifying. Could she convince him to embrace growth? What lingered in the silence between them was not just the questioning of business strategy, but the very essence of their partnership, and perhaps an unspoken question lurking in the depths of his eyes. Would Ethan support her evolution, or would he cling to the safety of the familiar? Minutes ticked by, stretching the moment into an eternity, and Lucy's heart pounded, waiting for him to respond. What revelations awaited her in Ethan's answer? As he opened his mouth to speak, the potential for both her aspirations and their relationship hung in exquisite suspense, a delicate balance between risk and reward. Could this conversation propel her forward, or would it stall her ambitions and fracture their shared journey? The moment loomed large, and she realized that the answer could shape the course of both their futures. Ethan's gaze faltered. The weight of uncertainty was etched across his features. Finally, he exhaled. his voice hesitant but tinged with a certain sincerity. "I appreciate your passion, Lucy. You've always had a way of seeing potential in things. But," he paused, searching for the right words, "what if it's too much change too quickly?" His concern struck Lucy like a cold gust of wind. Would her ambition be perceived as reckless? Would her own vision for the cafe, steeped in nostalgia and progress, render their partnership vulnerable? "Ethan," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I get that it's a risk, but consider where we started. Dragging our feet will only bury us in the past. If we don't evolve now, we risk stagnation. What's the point of keeping this place alive if we're not willing to breathe new life into it?" Ethan's brows knitted together in contemplation. She could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. Lucy suppressed an urge to shake him into understanding. Instead, she focused on her breathing, a grounding exercise she had learned from her yoga classes. Clarity often awaited in the lull between breaths, and perhaps she could extract it in this tense interlude. "Okay, say we do make changes. What changes do you envision specifically?" he finally asked, his tone softening just enough to imply he was willing to listen. Her heart surged, buoyed by his openness. "First, we can introduce a monthly feature where local artists can showcase their work here, maybe even have events like open mic nights or poetry readings. It would foster creativity and bring in new faces." Enthusiasm wrapped around her words, and she pressed on. "We could offer workshops, too. Cooking classes or coffee brewing techniques. It showcases our expertise while engaging the community." Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, a barrier she hoped to break. "That sounds great, but what about the small regulars we have? They come here for familiarity. Will they embrace the unfamiliar?" Lucy considered his question, wrestling with doubt but holding on to her vision tightly. "It's a delicate balance, sure. But think about it, Ethan. Our regulars already see this place as a refuge. What if we create events that involve them? Collaborations with artists they know? Even thematic evenings that remind them of home but enrich their experience?" The silence stretched again, and she could see Ethan weighing her words, sorting through the various streams of thought crashing into one another. Deep down, she realized the fumbles of her own self-doubt had painted an unfair picture of him. This wasn't just her battle, it was theirs to navigate. "Let's say we do this," he finally said, his brow unfurrowing slightly. "How do we know if it's working? What if it backfires?" The question grounded her. "We can set clear metrics, attendance rates, customer feedback, social media engagement. It's not just about the changes, but how we adapt along the way." A realization washed over her as she spoke. This project wasn't solely about reinventing the cafe. It was a rite of passage for her to emerge as a leader capable of holding space for both her ideas and their shared dreams. The atmosphere shifted, the moment encompassing more than a simple conversation about coffee and pastries. They were negotiating their future, one that required vulnerability, adaptability, and mutual respect. Each illuminated thought cast shadows on past anxieties, urging her to reaffirm her belief that leadership wasn't about having all the answers, but rather fostering an environment for collaboration and growth. Ethan's gaze softened, a flicker of understanding sparking in his eyes. "I'll think about it. This isn't an easy discussion." The sincerity of his statement ignited a flame within Lucy, a blending of resolve and relief. Still, uncertainty tinged the air as the meeting came to a close. Lucy realized their conversation had scratched the surface of deeper issues yet to be addressed: fear of failure, the complexity of evolving relationships, and the dynamics of shared ownership. Courage was brewing in her heart, but so were reservations about what lay ahead. She felt the urgency to commit to her vision, but knew that the path ahead was laced with potential pitfalls. This was only the beginning, and as they wrapped up their discussion, one haunting thought lingered in her mind. Had she stirred the winds of change just enough to propel them both forward, or had she cast a shadow on what made them them? At the end of the day, Lucy would have to confront another layer of complexity. Did she have the strength to navigate these changes while preserving the essence of what had once united them? As she cleaned the tables, her pulse thrummed with anticipation. Tomorrow, they would meet again. But what discoveries awaited in the depths of Ethan's decision? The morning light filtered through the cafe windows, casting warm hues on the well-worn wooden tables. Lucy wiped away the remnants of yesterday, her movements almost mechanical, yet her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Today was the day. She could feel the weight of her ambitions pressing against the confines of her chest, a tangible force reminding her that every moment of hesitation could stall her vision. As she brewed the first pot of coffee, the rich aroma filled the air, evoking memories of the cafe's past, conversations shared, laughter echoing in corners, and the soft clinking of cups. Each sip served as a reminder of the community they had built, sitting delicately on the precipice of change. But the question loomed, looming larger than the coffee machine before her. Could she be a catalyst for transformation without losing the ground they'd built upon? She remembered Ethan's hesitant gaze yesterday, how he had unwittingly mirrored her fears about forging a new path. In their partnership, she had always been the dreamer, while he embodied caution and tradition. This balance was what made them strong. Yet today, she needed to tap into a different frontier of strength, the willingness to take risks, not only personally, but alongside Ethan. With each customer that entered the cafe, Lucy felt her resolve tighten. The regulars, with their comfortable smiles and shared routine, represented both the heartbeat of the cafe and a potential impediment to change. Who were they without those familiar faces? But as she observed familiar patrons chatting over their morning brews, Lucy found herself seeking inspiration in their rituals. What if their essence could coexist with innovation? Drawing on this newfound perspective, she jotted down notes. Today's meeting would be about partnership and vision alignment. If Ethan was hesitant before, it was time to illuminate the possibilities together instead of merely presenting them as orders to follow. When Ethan arrived, his expression remained a blend of curiosity and caution. She'd learned through their history that his defenses often softened when faced with authenticity. And so, Lucy took a deep breath before launching into their meeting, laying her ideas before him not as mandates, but as invitations. "Ethan," she began evenly, "I know this isn't easy for you. Let's think of the current changes as opportunities to deepen the connections we already have with our patrons. For instance, instead of pulling away from what's familiar, we could evolve those traditions. Imagine mixing some of our most beloved menu items with elements from local cuisines, or hosting events that celebrate our regular stories." He listened intently, his brow furrowing slightly, and she noticed him relaxing against the chair a fraction. That shift, though subtle, ignited a flicker of hope within her. Could she bridge the gap between his hesitations and her vision? "Think about our regulars," she continued, her passion pouring forth. "By involving them in these new initiatives, whether through art showcases or themed evenings, we can maintain their importance to the cafe while introducing fresh experiences. It's still home, just with a new layer of flavor." Ethan's hands met in front of him, fingers intertwined, and she watched as he wrestled with the weight of her words. They had shared many cups of coffee together, but today felt different. It was a brewing dialogue laden with possibility. After a moment of introspection, he leaned forward, his voice less guarded. "What if these changes divert from the core of what we offer? How do we ensure we don't lose that essence?" Lucy took that as an opportunity to frame their fears positively. What we perceive as loss can be reframed as growth. We can create metrics together to gauge success, but it's about transformation, not destruction. Let's commit to evaluating and adapting as we go. This venture has always been about collaboration. let's center that in our approach to change as well. With each exchange, Lucy felt a part of herself expanding. She was no longer just the dreamer. She was becoming a collaborator in creating new pathways. As Ethan nodded thoughtfully, contemplating her perspective, her confidence swelled. Yet, amidst this exchange, a familiar trepidation flickered within her. Was this the right direction? Had she overlooked something crucial in the emotional terrain they navigated? A sudden silence hung in the air as Ethan's gaze drifted towards the door, and she braced herself for the seismic shifts that these decisions could conjure. "All right, Lucy, let's do it. But I can't promise I won't challenge you along the way." The corner of her mouth tugged upward, relief coalescing with anticipation. I wouldn't have it any other way. With their agreement forged in the midst of brewed possibilities, Lucy felt a new kind of strength taking root. Yet the tremors of uncertainty still reverberated beneath this momentous decision. Was she truly ready for the challenges that lay ahead? The veils of courage she wore could soon become her armor or her shackles. As they wrapped up the meeting, a single thought lingered in the back of her mind. Ethan's willingness to adapt for the vision didn't entirely quell her fears. What would happen if their customers, a group she held dear, turned out to be resistant to change? It felt like standing on a precipice, heart racing at the thought of the plunge ahead. Not only did Lucy have to commit to the journey of transformation, but she also had to prepare for the unexpected fallout of their shared decisions. As the morning rush began to fade, she could almost sense the shifting tides of their cafe's future, and she braced herself for the potential waves of resistance she might soon face from the very patrons she aimed to inspire. Would her vision for connection be met with open arms, or would she find herself facing those who wished to keep her dreams bound to safety? The sun glistened brightly through the cafe windows, infusing the space with a sense of potential that mirrored Lucy's invigorated spirit. The previous day's meeting with Ethan had cemented her resolve to turn the cafe into something transformative. The anxiety that once clouded her thoughts had begun to recede, replaced by a burgeoning excitement and clarity about her vision. Determined to own her narrative, Lucy dove into preparation for their first community event, an open mic night that would be held that very week. Fueled by an electric mixture of anticipation and adrenaline, she began organizing details, reaching out to local artists, arranging a cozy stage area, and crafting flyers that would draw people in. Each step she took felt like a declaration of independence from the confines of self-doubt. As the day unfolded, she transformed her fear of change into actionable steps, shaping an environment where creativity could thrive. Regular customers began noticing her shifts in energy. Whispers of curiosity buzzed like the espresso machine. The coffee shop was becoming a hub of excitement, compelling conversation, and creativity. When Ethan arrived later that afternoon, he grinned at her flourished ideas scattered across the table. They had discussed potential changes, but seeing them take tangible form ignited a spark of camaraderie between them. "This is incredible work, Lucy," he remarked, clearly impressed. "I can feel the energy already." A wave of pride welled within her. Earlier, she wouldn't have dreamed that she could step into this newfound authority, but now she lived it. Not only did she embrace her grandmother's legacy, she was turning it into a beacon that could light the way for others. This can be a space not just for coffee, but for connection, for artistry, for people to share their souls, she said, exuding a newfound confidence. As the event day approached, discomfort began to stir, a sensation she recognized as the complexities of emotional ties. What if all her hopes fell flat? What if her regulars, the very foundation of her cafe's spirit, protested against her desires for reinvention? Anxiety morphed into a familiar beast, whispering worst-case scenarios that clawed at her resolve. The night of the open mic event arrived, cloaked in anticipation. Lucy arranged the tables, transforming the cafe into a welcoming enclave of creativity. She felt an exhilarating rush as familiar faces filled the space. This was her community, representing both comfort and an apprehension about the unknown. Ethan walked in moments before the event commenced, offering her a reassuring nod. Together, they had navigated uncertainties, but now it relied on Lucy to set the tone. Standing before a crowd of hesitant yet eager eyes, she took a breath, allowing the warmth of her family's legacy and her tenacity to envelop her. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we're celebrating voices and stories, our stories, she stated, projecting with an authority she hadn't known was within her. This cafe is not just about the coffee, it's about connections and shared experiences. Your stories matter here. Let's create memories together. The applause that followed was echoing, but it was Ethan's approving nod in the audience that resonated deeply inside her. The night unfolded in a dance of artistry, laughter, and communion. She watched individuals brave the stage, sharing poetry, music, and heart-wrenching stories. Each performance birthed a collective breath of appreciation, weaving connections more profound than she'd anticipated. With each moment that passed, Lucy felt her identity crystallizing clearly. No longer shrouded by the cape of her grandmother's influence, she was emerging as a leader, dedicated to cultivating a thriving community. The joy in her heart swelled. She recognized that every suggestion, every ounce of support from the patrons around her was forging her into a version of herself she had only dreamed of becoming. As the last performer stepped off the stage, a warm buzz filled the cafe, and patrons lingered long after the event concluded. These connections, born from vulnerability and shared experience, illuminated more than just the inky night. They nourished Lucy's spirit in a completely unexpected way. Ethan approached her, beaming with admiration. "You absolutely crushed it," he said, pride evident in his tone. Lucy felt the weight of her journey transform into a lightness that surged through her core. "We did it together," she replied, nodding towards the animated crowd. "This isn't just my cafe anymore, it's ours." In that moment, the barriers that once whispered of uncertainty and resistance fell away. They shared an understanding that growth was possible, as was the potential for shared aspirations even amidst different backgrounds. Lucy was firmly planted in her own shoes now. She had embraced vulnerability and maneuvered through the hesitations that threatened to derail her dreams. Months later, as Lucy walked through the bustling cafe, brimming with creativity and laughter, she soared with solid confidence. Each event led to another, breathing life into a community saturated with new artistic connections. People came not just for coffee, but for authentic experiences. And her customers were no longer just regulars, they became collaborators in this unfolding tale. Recognized by local media for her innovative approach, pages of response letters began pouring in, a manifestation of the community she had nurtured into existence. Her heart brimmed with gratitude and fulfillment, the recognition validating her evolution as a leader. Lucy had achieved not simply participation in a legacy, but rather the transformation of that heritage into a vibrant platform for human expression. It marked her personal accomplishment of harnessing her fears and turning them into stepping stones toward growth, not just for herself, but for a community eager to thrive. As she stepped behind the counter, a familiar customer raised their cup in toast. "To the spirit of connection," they declared, laughter dancing in everyone's eyes, a testament to their journey in unity. Yes, Lucy had taken the leap into the unknown, and in doing so, she found her voice, her strength, and the profound realization that true legacy isn't built upon history, but on the empowerment of individual dreams merging into a collective vision. The path forward glittered with possibility, pulsing with the energy of shared stories waiting to unfold. The cafe would continue to grow, evolve, and transform, just as Lucy had. She had conquered what once held her captive, emerging with capital G, growth. Her journey of transformation had only just begun. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.